Whenever there's a best group, we also got to talk about, the group that may need the most work. So tell us a little bit about which position group is looking like maybe not, we don't want to say the weakest group, but let's just put it nicely and say the group that needs the most work.
Right. And I think that is a good way to put it because right now there isn't really a weak group. This team is loaded from top to bottom, right? But if you talk about a group that needs the most work, it's especially after news that we heard today, the tight end group. Right now, there isn't a solidified tight end number 2. I tweeted this out earlier today. There was before, but Jordan Matthews got injured. It was a non-contact injury in a one-on-one drill. He landed awkwardly. He grimaced. It was looking like it was his left knee, maybe left leg. I didn't anticipate it'd be an ACL injury. I honestly thought it'd be like a sprain that hopefully he twisted his foot or something because I didn't see exactly how it happened. But unfortunately, Jordan Matthews tore his ACL. I think it's honestly the tight end group because you don't have a solidified guy right now behind George Kittle.
I know a lot of guys in the comment section are thinking, it's more of the offensive line. We have heard some reports about the offensive line. You mentioned a little bit that you've been seeing them actually get better. Talk to us a little bit. Give us a report about what you're seeing from the offensive line, because I think maybe most people are looking at that as where the 49ers need the most work.
Now, remember what I said. There isn't really a weak group on this team. And when I say the tight end group, I don't expect it to struggle because it's got an all-pro at the position in the position group, right? And so preface that. I'm just talking about the overall depth. I think the offensive line struggles are a little bit overblown. Yesterday was the best day for the offensive line. I didn't really care about how they played today because of no pads. I mean, obviously, I'm keeping a close check. I thought they played good for the fact that they had no pads today because you saw pressure, but you didn't really see too many sacks, right? I think there was one sack really right on my mind that I talked about with the offensive line. That was Kevin Givens beating Jake Brendel for a sack on Trey Lance today. But yesterday was the best day. And this is an issue that I've really hammered on my streams, continuity. I like the 49ers have been flipping guys in and out because Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey have been limited, which means that they too haven't really played too much with the first team offensive line. When they've been out, the offensive line has looked good. Why? Because not only do they look really good, right? Especially McGlinchey. McGlinchey has been a surprise. He had a really good practice yesterday against Nick Bosa, especially. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the guards have to worry about the backup tackles when they're on the field, but don't necessarily have to worry and can just do their jobs when the top 2 tackles are on the field. On top of that, when you talk about the center position, it's been a rotation. I honestly thought Brunskill had won the job after yesterday. He took a majority of the reps, and the offensive line, like I said, looked the best it's looked. But Brendel took the first team reps today. That was a bit of a surprise to me. I personally am not a huge fan of this. I understand a competition, but for Trey Lance's sake, I don't think that is the best option because the 3 interior guys are all new. They need to find a way to work together. The cohesion is important, and I'm not only talking about pass protection. In the run game too. On Monday and on today's Wednesday, right? Yeah, on Monday, the offensive line, the running outside worked when pads first came on, but the interior rush, the zone run inside, did not work. On Tuesday, though, when you had a little more continuity with Brunskill taking the majority of the reps, there were good runs for 5-6 yards on the inside. And then today, you had the swap. And so, again, it's without pads, so you take it with a grain of salt, but there were a lot more 0, 1, and 2-yard rushes compared to Tuesday. And so that's the one thing. I'm not a huge fan at all, really, at this moment about this, especially this deep into camp. I hope the situation gets resolved sooner than later, because for Trey Lance's sake, because they protect different in pass protection, which is huge. I've hammered that point as well, and also in the run game.
So I have 2 questions to follow with what you just said. So you talked about Trent Williams and McGlinchey both being limited. Is that like a coach's decision just to not overwork them this early in camp, or are they nursing injuries right now?
Coach's decision. So Both of them. So remember, Trent Williams did not practice in the first part of training camp because he had a birth of his child, so he was not present. He showed up, I think, 2 or 3 days late. And McGlinchey is nursing obviously the injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
He looks healthy. He's looked good, but they're ramping him up. They gave him, I believe, a rest day. They gave him a rest day yesterday. And then they gave Kinlaw a rest day on Monday. They gave him a rest day yesterday. They've been giving a lot of vets rest days. Today was Bosa and Kittle and Drake Greenlaw. So they've been giving rest days to these guys, but it's they've been limited because Williams hasn't played too much, and then McGlinchey obviously coming back from injury. So, but I did the one positive. I talked about three guys, Kinlaw being the third. The one positive is that Kinlaw, who was there today, he got the biggest ramp up he's seen. He was playing a lot today with the ones, and that's a good sign.
Awesome. And then my second question is, you talked about the interior, right? So we know the position at center is either going to be Brunskill or Brendel, more than likely. Aaron Banks seems to be the left guard, but it seems like they're trying a few different people at the right guard position. Can you talk about who you think is going to actually end up being the right guard, and also maybe give us an update on what you've seen out of Aaron Banks now that he's like slotted in as the left guard?
Yeah, I have not actually seen anybody apart from Spencer Burford on the right guard side. There have been a couple of guys sliding in for right guard number 2, but to be honest, there is no competition at right guard right now. The guys at RG2 right now really aren't competing. Jason Poe hasn't looked that great. He's looked a little bit overwhelmed at right guard. He was relegated elsewhere as well. He's played in a couple of different positions. Keaton Sutherland was the second guy to play at right guard. He won't make the team. The third guy was Colton McKivitz, but he also has played time at tackle. He will make the team, but I don't think he's in competition. I think it's honestly locked at Burford, which is what makes the entire offensive line debacle a little more interesting. The center position right now is where it's a little more confusing. I personally right now think Daniel Brunskill will win it, although my views changed a little bit today after seeing Brendel back with the ones after Brunskill's strong day. So I'm not exactly sure. That's the biggest question mark right now.
And then can you give us an update on what you've seen from Banks? Obviously, last year he was playing more right guard, didn't have the best training camp, obviously didn't get much playing time. Came back, his body looks a lot better, been getting some high praise from his teammates, namely Trent Williams. But what are you seeing on the field from him? How is he looking? And does it look like, that left guard position is his job basically at this point?
Yes. So talking about Aaron Banks, he's had up and down days. I think he's been the most consistent. If we're being honest, I think he's been the most consistent interior offensive lineman. I think he's been the best so far, but it doesn't mean that he hasn't been doing great days. Like he's had some rough days. There was a day where he was beat consistently by Kevin Givens. And remember, Kevin Givens, he's actually a good player, but he's a backup on this team, so you don't necessarily want him to consistently beat a starting left guard. I think he'll do better with Trent Williams, which is why I'm still waiting to necessarily bring it out. Burford has had a couple of good days. It's like everybody has had good and bad days. So I can't necessarily say definitively that Aaron Banks has been the best of the three. I think they're all still improving, but it's not that I don't have hope. I still think that this offensive line is going to be fine.
Okay. And that's great to see. Obviously, that's been one of the biggest question marks, and it's good to see that we're actually progressing in the right direction.